What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Wolverine Live Recruiting Show. I'm your host, EJ Holland. Alongside me is my co-host, Zach Libby. Before we dive into tonight's show, I want to invite you guys to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. Help us get the word out there. We already have some people joining in, so if you're in the show already, make sure to hit that like button. It helps with the algorithm and helps us get in front of other Michigan fans. So hit the like video and subscribe for free, and you get updates every time we drop a new video. So shout out to everybody that's filing in and joining. Both Zach and I were on the road this weekend. Zach, you were back in Ohio. You actually were in Cincinnati.
Yes.
Did you get Skyline chili?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, man.
I got the small one, but I watched the whole third quarter of the Michigan game at Skyline. So it was nice. It was relaxing, not gonna lie.
So it's Michigan football and Skyline chili season. Did you get the hot dog, or did you just get the chili itself?
I just got the spaghetti chili,
Oh,
the small one. Like, it's pretty nice. I mean, it doesn't fill you up, and it tastes pretty good. And it was like 60 degrees on Saturday when I was down there, so it's just like the perfect comfort meal, especially after driving like 20 hours, the 24 hours prior. So it was much deserved. I think I deserved some nice Skyline chili, despite your criticisms.
I totally forgot the thing is spaghetti and not hot dogs, since I've only had Skyline chili once and it was not a pleasant experience. I was not very excited about Skyline chili. I had some issues on the way back, so hopefully you didn't experience any of that on the drive home.
No, successful drive home.
Okay, so Zach had his Skyline chili, got to Cincinnati, and you had a chance to see Elias Rudolph, who we've talked about on this show plenty of times. 4-star edge, who was formerly committed to Michigan, flipped his commitment to Miami. Zach, you had a chance to have a long conversation with Rudolph. You posted a great update over at the Wolverine.com for those of you that aren't subscribed to the Wolverine.com to read Zach's full update with quotes directly from Rudolph. You can go head over and sign up right now. But as you see here, he flipped to Miami in August, but Michigan hasn't lost contact. In fact, they're in contact on a daily basis. So Zach, tell us the latest from your conversations with Rudolph.
So yeah, a little bit of a backstory. We haven't talked to Rudolph since he was committed to Michigan, so late July. So this was really an update of how everything was these past 30 days when he flipped. Asking him straight up, like, is Michigan still in contact with you? I mean, he was honest. He said communication happens daily with the coaching staff. And keep in mind, when he committed to Michigan, a big reason for that was the coaching staff. I mean, area recruiter Steve Klingscale, who's a fellow Ohio native, defensive line coach Mike Elston, pass rush specialist Dylan Roney, defensive coordinator Jesse Minter, like, they all played a role in Elias committing. And what was the third Cincinnati native this cycle to commit to Michigan. So that contact hasn't gone away. In fact, like you mentioned, it's happening every day. I asked him what the message was from Michigan, since he's now at Miami. And I mean, I think Michigan's being straight up with him and saying that Michigan is the best program fit for him as an outside edge speed rusher. It still means something to him, too, that the number 2 ranked team, and he said that verbatim, the number 2 ranked team in the country still wants him. He talked about how great of relationships and the connections that he built with each of those coaches. He talked about just the characters of everyone at Michigan, whether it's outside staff or everybody else. Just everyone was supportive, and he had a great time on the visits. But, now that he's committed to Miami, things have changed in terms of how communication is gone, right? Like, Michigan now wants him to visit for a game day visit. And he committed without having ever seen a game at the Big House live. So that's really important, I think, for Michigan to just let him soak in the atmosphere, let him vision himself playing on that field. There's a laundry list of games coming up that give recruits and targets that sort of unique, special atmosphere. 2 night games, Ohio State, Indiana is going to be a big one. So there's opportunities, and he said he's trying to visit. No date set yet, but now that he's only 4 hours away as opposed to a flight away when he was at Deerfield Beach, that is a possibility. He hasn't set a date yet to Miami either, but I know he's going to go back. So I think, 2 days, 3 days of, reflecting off the trip and everything. I think Michigan is kind of doing like a slow burn, right? Like you're not trying to make them flip or trying to get a flip or working towards one immediately. There's still 3.5 more months until December. So if you can potentially keep the message going, keep the communication up, no need to rush things, bring them on that visit, carry it on to December and see what happens. But yeah, I still think there's interest, but at the end, I think Miami really hit it home with him in terms of playing for a team that, as he said, doesn't get the respect that they should, or playing on the come up. And that's what he did his entire youth career. So there's a lot of familiarity. And of course, he has family in South Florida. So I think it would be an interesting thing to watch. But yeah, the next step has to be getting him on a visit before we can really say, where this leads to.
Before I give my quick thoughts on the Rudolph recruitment, we do have a super chat from Funky Bunch 3. So big shout out to him. Remember, this is the super chat show. Tomorrow I'll be back to answer more questions for free. But today, if you want your question answered by both Zach and I, hit that super chat button. That money also goes directly to our travel budget so we can continue to see recruits across the country. And Funky Bunch 3 asks, anyone from Michigan State's class that Michigan can poach? And he also adds, was there ever any interest from Nick Marsh's end, or never any interest on Michigan's end? Thanks. So going back to Michigan State, obviously there's a lot of drama going on in East Lansing right now with the Mel Tucker allegations, which is obviously just a terrible situation as a whole. A lot coming out on both sides, so definitely don't want to get too much into that. So sticking with recruiting, I'll throw it to you first, Zach. You had a chance to go out and see Nick Marsh earlier this season. That name has been brought up quite a bit. You are our Michigan resident. Do you think it's worth re-exploring Nick Marsh?
I honestly think he'd stay in the class. I think he has a lot of love for Michigan State, as does his family. And I think the Michigan State support, especially on social media these past 36 hours, kind of show that I think he'll stay and represent his state, his hometown of River Rouge and the state of Michigan and East Lansing. But yeah, I've kind of always said, behind the scenes, that Marsh is that bigger body target, that vertical threat that I know you and I both have, highly graded. He's always impressed me in games or camps. If Michigan, let's say, started contact or circled back, I would support. I think that would be a good idea, but I feel like right now he's very locked into Michigan State, regardless of what's happening over there. There's just so much love from his, everyone in that circle for the Spartans. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think, from a talent perspective, I like Dick Marsh. I like that he is that big bodied wideout. Michigan obviously still has a need for that. And to kind of go back to Funky Bunch's, secondary question following the super chat, was there ever any interest on Nick Marsh's end, or never any interest on Michigan's end? Marsh did make a visit to Michigan, a couple of visits, I believe, as an underclassman. And there was a time where Ron Bellamy was recruiting him. I just think there's been a lot of moving parts that I don't think are really worth discussing on the show that kind of it was probably for the best that both parties, kind of moved on, right? Um, at the same time, like I said, Michigan still has that need for a big body. So could they circle back? Maybe. But still, I think there would still be the moving parts hurdle to overcome. A couple of names I'll throw out there, and look, Michigan State's class just isn't very good. So, I don't think there are a lot of names to pick from, but a couple of guys in the secondary. Sire Torrance is a Michigan State commit that Michigan offered when they were kind of resetting the DB board after a series of misses in the summer. So if Michigan makes a press for Sire Torrance, I could easily see him ending up in Michigan's class. He's a 3-star athlete out of Syracuse, New York. Mike Hart's very familiar with his high school and with his coach. So I think that would definitely open the door for Michigan making a flip. He's ranked in the 1000s. Michigan likes him on the back end as kind of a versatile piece in the secondary. So if they do decide to push for Torrance, again, I would be surprised if he doesn't end up in the class at that point. The other name in the secondary, Michigan still has a need for a safety. Obviously, Zaquan Patterson is still a flip target for the Wolverines, but with him committed to Miami and that whole situation, you definitely want to have some other plans. And Justin Denson would be a name to know. He's a kid I saw on the 7-on-7 circuit out of Rhode Island. And he had some, flashes of this guy could turn into something. And I think that he would be a guy worth at least taking a look at as a safety. He can also play some corner as well. He's just a 3-star prospect. He's ranked in the 700s. But like I said, I liked his game. I mean, he had several Power 5 offers on the table as well. And, Michigan is back to recruiting around the Northeast and into New England. So I feel like Justin Denson could potentially be a target with what they have, left on the board. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of slim pickings with Michigan State's class. Not a lot of guys to really get super excited about. But appreciate Funky Bunch 3 for delivering that super chat. Going back to Rudolph, I'll just give my quick thoughts there. Look, if Michigan can offer anything on the NIL front, I think it would help out tremendously. Obviously, if there's one area that Miami has an edge against Michigan, it is on the NIL front. The Hurricanes are major players for in terms of NIL. So Michigan obviously isn't participating in the same game as Miami with NIL, and I think that had a negative effect with Rudolph. On the flip side of the coin, like I said, if Michigan can offer anything, the relationships are still there. Steve Klinkscale has been recruiting Rudolph since he was really, really young. He obviously was already committed to Michigan. The Wolverines can easily pitch pass rusher production and guys they've sent to the NFL like Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. Rudolph recently moved back to the Midwest. He is in Cincinnati where Zach saw him, so proximity. Everything just makes sense for Michigan here except NIL. So we'll see if anything changes on that front. But the other, keynote from Zach is Rudolph is very open to visiting Michigan this season. And if he does make it to campus, then I think the opportunity is there to create some movement. So let's go on to our other flip target that we're going to talk about, and that is Nitro Tuggle on 300 wide receiver committed to Georgia. Now, before you made the trip to Ohio, you were actually in Indiana spending time with Tuggle. Give us your thoughts on where Michigan stands with their pursuit of Tuggle.
So yeah, Nitro Tuggle, Nitarian Tuggle from Northwest Indiana, committed to Georgia on April 11th, which was pretty much exactly a month after he took his first ever unofficial visit to Michigan. He got a full tour of facilities, met with Ron Bellamy, met with head coach Jim Harbaugh, really got the full picture of what a wideout can do or gets presented in that system. And credit to him, he opened up about his relationship with Coach Bellamy, who has been in contact with Tuggle about once every 2 weeks or once every week, just catching up, greetings. But yeah, Tuggle said one of the great things about Bellamy is that he was always truthful in their meetings. There was never a lie told. Tuggle never felt like he left needing to be told more or didn't feel like he was told the full story. So I think that played an account of Michigan, being a top school for him in the late winter and early spring. But yeah, Georgia's season success with 2-time national champs and, the wide receiver development, and then his trust in Georgia's wide receivers coach, who's also from the Midwest, played a big part in him committing. He told On3 maybe back in June that he was open to taking official visits if needed, taking future visits in the fall, because, now you can take unlimited. Michigan is in consideration if that happens, obviously because of Bellamy. And then another factor is just having a teammate in Josiah Edmund, who the cornerback commit of Michigan, who committed on August 1st. Now, this is an interesting part of the story because having Edmund in the fray now, if Edmund returns, or once he does return in the fall, he's going to try to bring Tuggle with him. And I know Tuggle has said that he's been listening, or he's been hearing what Edmund has to say. So yeah, I think the big thing for that is if he does end up taking visits, go with Edmund, have a friend with you, have a close teammate by, go to one of the big games, Purdue, for instance, Josiah Edmund's former school, and just showcase a balanced offense. I think that was one thing that Tuggle mentioned in the story, where that was one thing kind of holding Michigan back, which was, more explosive passing attack. And I think we've seen this past 2 games under JJ McCarthy that Michigan can be a balance and commit to the pass, and have success with that scheme. So I think that's important, but also let's just, he just has to take visits first. He's just considering it. It's not locked in. No schools have locked in. But if that does happen, I can definitely see Michigan getting at least him on campus again. And then adding Edmund to it, I think Michigan could have a shot, and it just, building momentum. But, Georgia, obviously they've had success at developing at wide receivers. He has a great relationship with their coach. I think the aurora of playing for Georgia is huge. So it's going to be a challenge. But I think with someone like Bellamy, who's, presents that personality that people like Tuggle really appreciate, we'll see what happens later on in the fall.
Yeah, I do think Michigan will get Tuggle on campus. He is open to making other visits. I do think Josiah Edmund and Ron Bellamy will convince him to make his way to campus. I think the pre-existing relationship with Bellamy obviously helps. Bellamy is still a very magnetic recruiter. The thing about Bellamy is it's tough to sell this offense to highly touted receivers like Tuggle, who's ranked as the number 109 overall recruit in the country. Um, and he was, pretty open with you, saying he wanted to see more explosive plays. And like you pointed out, Michigan has been able to do that so far this year. JJ is having a tremendous year, but a lot of, these kids haven't really watched Michigan. I don't think, the games haven't been very high profile. You had the opener on Peacock. So I think the more explosive plays you can get into Big Ten play, once Big Ten play starts up, if JJ continues to hit, Roman Wilson for big plays and just has the pass game going, I think that will really open the eyes of Tuggle and potentially some others, as Michigan still has a need for another wide receiver this cycle. But the one thing that again scares me, the same thing with Rudolph, is NIL. I mean, he talked about visiting other schools, and the other schools he listed were NIL schools. I believe it was like Miami and Tennessee and Texas A&M. I mean, I don't think Michigan can do much from an NIL standpoint. So it'll be interesting to see how much that plays a factor as well. All right, guys, before we move on to our next topic, I want to invite you guys to subscribe to the Wolverine.com today for just $1 for 1 month. If you want to read direct quotes from Nitro Tuggle and Elias Rudolph, you want to get our in-depth reports and thoughts on everything going on Michigan recruiting, you can sign up today for just $1 for 1 month. That is for new members. If you want a annual subscription, you can sign up for $109. But the dollar offer is just $1 for 1 month. You can't beat that. It's less than a bowl of Skyline chili. So come over to the Wolverine.com and sign up today for exclusive recruiting information, team information. The season's in full swing. You don't want to miss anything going on during Big Ten conference play, which is just a couple of weeks away. So sign up today for $1 for 1 month over at the Wolverine.com. And while more people have flooded in, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. All right, Zach, let's go ahead and move on to our second topic of the day. And we can play a little small violin, and that is Mantes Walker. Happy trails. We hardly knew you, Mantes Walker. 3-star 2025 linebacker out of Buford, Georgia, is no longer a part of Michigan's 2025 recruiting class. Zach, how will you remember Mantes Walker?
He was a really nice kid. He always gave us interviews, always was open with us when we asked him questions. But I guess on the field, I'm going to break this down. I guess on the field, him as a true Mike, guy who has B-gap control in between the tackles. I guess with Michigan's scheme fit, you take a look at the 2024 linebackers, they have that versatility. They can play Will, Mike, edge, a hybrid safety. I guess the role that I could see him playing most is Junior Colson, but you want those defense, positionless linebackers that you see in this cycle. I guess there's other options in 2025 cycle that kind of fit that mold that Michigan is looking for. But yeah, I think it was just kind of when, if not if, when, not if, for him to decommit, especially when he was tweeting on August 1st about, recruiting staying open and not 100% shut down. So, I'll never blame a kid for wanting to go through the process as a once in a lifetime opportunity and take full advantage of it, if you want to be 100% sure. So, I wish him the best, I guess I can say.
I had a chance to go watch Mantes Walker a couple weeks ago, right before he decommitted. And look, I just don't think he's a Chris Partridge type of linebacker. It seems, Partridge likes guys that are a little more athletic and lengthier. And then Jesse Minter likes guys that, are a little thicker like Walker, but also have more sideline to sideline speed and can play in space. And I don't think that's Mantes Walker. I think Mantes Walker is more of a shorter inside backer that is better fit for a 4-3 defense where he is a true Mike in the middle. He's a guy that plays the run really well and is physical, but I never thought he was a great fit for Michigan's defensive scheme. I don't think he's a guy that plays in space too well, and I don't think he's a guy that runs sideline to sideline. And his height, height doesn't concern me too much for inside backers. I don't care if you're 6 foot or 6'1", but I think he's probably generously listed at 5'11". So I think height was a little bit of a concern for me. And you have to keep in mind that, again, Chris Partridge wasn't the guy that really recruited Walker. He kind of committed as Michigan was trying to make a big push in Buford. And 4-star running back Justin Baker remains a top target for the Wolverines out of Buford. But I think the Wolverines were, trying to establish some relationships there. And it gradually just ended. Things just ended with Walker. I don't think it's much of a loss. There are so many linebacker targets out there. I feel like I've seen a bazillion linebacker targets over the last few weeks. I mean, You have guys like Kamar Archie, Nathaniel Owosu Boateng, Parker Meese. There's been so many guys that I've seen. It's insane how many 25 backers are out there. DJ McClary. I think one weekend I saw 7 linebacker targets. Like they just keep popping up in my head. Anthony Saka. Like there's just so many backers out there. It's a really strong 2025 class, and I think Chris Partridge prefers a lot of others. So at the end of the day, I do hope Walker finds a good home, but I think it was best for both parties to go their separate ways. So that's all we have on the Mantes Walker situation. Before we talk about our final topic of the day, we do have a message from our sponsor, Lewis Jewelers. Lewis Jewelers has been serving the Ann Arbor and Detroit region since 1921. Lewis Jewelers' reputation and continued success stems from their belief that a successful jewelry store is built on integrity, quality customer service, and quality products. Lewis Jewelers is a proud sponsor of Michigan Athletics. To ensure that every client that walks through their doors or peruses their virtual store is taken care of, they have non-commissioned trusted advisors that are always ready to provide a professional experience and advise. There's no pressure, there's no commission. Located in the bustling city limits of Ann Arbor, Michigan, Lewis Jewelers proudly serves Ann Arbor and surrounding southeastern Michigan communities by providing an exquisite selection of fine jewelry as well as excellent customer service to its residents and visitors. Visit their new location at 300 South Maple Road, Ann Arbor, or online at lewisjewelers.com. And Zach is sporting some Lewis Jewelers jewelry right now on his ears. He went and bought the Lewis Jewelers jewelry. Everybody that needs some jewelry, wants some bling, if you want to be like Zach, go over to Lewis Jewelers. I've been talking about getting the gold dog tag for a while, and it's on its way. I had Zach go over to the store and ship it to me. So, I'm ready. So shout out Lewis Jewelers for sponsoring tonight's show. Now, like I said, we were on the road. Obviously, Zach saw Nitro and Rudolph, but we did see some commits. Let's throw it back to you, Zach, because Nitro's teammate is obviously 3-star Michigan cornerback commit Josiah Edmund. Get the fans excited about Josiah Edmund, man. What did you see from him?
Yeah, seeing 3-star prospects is interesting, like from my perspective, because you kind of want to see why they're a 3-star. When I saw Edmund play, I think, driving home, I think the claim was kind of made in my head that I think he's sort of the victim of the lack of exposure, from as someone who's in the top 700 on 3 industry ranking. I think he's more suitable as a top 500, at least top 400. I think that's the ballpark that he should be in. Physically, he's 185 pounds right now, got a leaner frame, so he can pack on 10 pounds and enter Michigan in that 195, 200 pound range. The length in his arms is great. It helps him make plays on the ball, both offensively and defensively. He's got that height that Michigan really looks for in its cornerbacks, in that 6'1", 6'2" range. In terms of his athleticism, very agile, like he can change direction on a dime. It's really helped him be an impact player offensively, like on both sides of the ball for Northwood, because he plays wide out, running back, kick returner, punt returner. He's the punter. Defensively, he got reps at safety, deep safety, strong safety, and the nickel. I wish I could have gotten seen him, get reps as a field or boundary corner, but I think it was really impressive to see him as a run support nickel back. Northwood really sent him on blitzes quite a bit. He got like a couple tackles for a loss and a sack. He's very aggressive. He plays with that physicality that Michigan defensive backs coach Steve Klingscale looks for. He also has that sort of like that fiery attitude that's kind of common for guys that Klingscale brings in. I think, in terms of someone that I have seen Michigan defensive backs, that's what you kind of want to see, those loud, vocal, command attention, the right attention from everyone. You have that influence status on your teammates. They listen to you. They want to hear what you have to say, but also you're so self-confident in your own abilities that you can do that without issue. That's exactly what Josiah Edmund is. He has the ability to be a two-way player in college. If he wanted to play wide receiver, I think he could. But I think just in terms of how he acts and his attitude, I think he would just thrive under Klingsale's leadership. It's just such a very good underrated land that I feel like once more eyes get on him, and from a national perspective, I think people are going to notice that Michigan landed a very, very fine piece right after the barbecue at the Big House when he last visited.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like Josiah Edmund. Glad Zach had a chance to see him live. I think he's one of the players in the class that will have a chance to definitely outplay his ranking. I had a chance to see two commits, sort of. It was a hellacious weekend for me, man. I drove to Maryland and back 3 times, 3 times, because there were lightning delays all over the place. Games were postponed. Oh my God. So I got to Oakdale on Friday night, which is the home high school of Dominic Nichols. Was really excited to see Nichols. I've seen him live before, but this would have been my first time seeing him in pads, right? And on top of that, there have been some rumors that he's wavering and all of that. So I was really excited to head out there to see Nichols. I got there, and the lightning, man, just as soon as I got out of the car, I walked towards the stadium, and they were like, "Get back in your cars." And so I waited around. They called the game. So I went inside, I talked to Nichols, and then the coach told me, "Hey, we're going to start at 11 a.m. tomorrow." And I was like, great, that'll give me time to still see Nichols and Devin Baxter, who was scheduled to play at 2:30 the next day. So I get to Nichols' school on Saturday in the morning. They push the game back till 12. Then the referees didn't show up. And so we had another delay. And so at this point, I'm panicking because I have to get over to see Devin Baxter. And, I only had a chance to see limited action of Dominic Nichols. So before I continue the story, let's talk about Dominic Nichols. So in the very limited action I saw of Dominic Nichols, and I was so mad because he threw a touchdown pass later in the game that I missed. But in the limited action, I really like Dominic Nichols. He's 6'5", listed at 255 pounds, but it looks like he's dropped some weight. He's really long. He's athletic. He has a basketball background. On the very first drive of the game, he jumped up and batted a ball down. He's that bigger edge in the same mold as Eno Etta and Mike Morris. I think he's going to play that role all the way. So I know On3 lists him as a defensive lineman, but he is exactly what Mike Morris was. And I think that would be my Michigan player comparison for him. In terms, and I won't spend too much time talking about his game because I already saw any of it. So in terms of his recruitment, in terms of his recruitment, obviously he committed to Michigan in June, but there's been some buzz that he's taking a look at other programs. Wisconsin and Clemson have been the two schools mentioned the most, but a third school has risen up, and that is Florida State. They have recently been in contact. However, Nichols assured me that he's still happy with his commitment to Michigan. He's had some really good conversations with the staff. I think two things that stood out to me from my talk with Nichols was one, the relationships, right? These other schools have recruited him hard and are trying to flip him, but the relationship he has with Dylan Roney, who works closely with Michigan's pass rushers, is a really special bond. And then Jesse Minter, Michigan's defensive coordinator, and Michigan defensive line coach Mike Elston have done a really great job of recruiting him as well and have been extremely active with him. So, the relationships play a big role. And two, he actually watched Michigan's opener on Peacock against East Carolina. And I know Michigan didn't have any sacks, but I think Nichols looked at it a different way than most. he actually looked at it like, okay, these guys didn't get any sacks. That means that I can come in potentially play early. There will be open competition for me if I can earn that. And so I think it may have actually helped in a weird way that they didn't have any sacks. So, it's something to continue to monitor. I don't think those schools are going away anytime soon. I think, the fact that they're still in contact, says they're going to be in contact the whole way through. But for now, I think Nichols is still happy with his pledge to Michigan. And you've seen the edge room clear out a little bit too, with the decommitment of Elias Rudolph, who we talked about earlier. And then you have Jacob Smith wavering right now as well. So we'll see how that shakes out. But, after the referees finally got there and there was a skirmish on the field and all types of nonsense going on. I drove over to Devin Baxter's game on Saturday, got there late, but there was nobody on the field. And everybody was just standing around. And of course, there was a lightning delay. And so they ended up postponing the game to Monday. And so I drove all the way back home again for the second straight day. And then I went back out to Maryland on Monday and had a chance to see Devin Baxter yesterday. So I had some rare Monday night football action. And it was an unfortunate game to go to. And I say that because Devin Baxter is a pass rusher. And the team he played against ran the most 1920s John Borton style offense you can imagine. They ran a multiple I, they ran the wing T, they ran the wishbone. So I didn't get to see Devin Baxter do a ton. They mostly read off of him. So when you play run heavy teams like that and you're a defensive end, you have responsibilities, especially on read options or on options in general. You have the quarterback or you have the running back and the backer behind you has the other. So, and they run a lot of pulling offensive linemen. And so, Baxter's job is to follow the poolers. And so he did that, right? He played assignment football, and that's all I got to see him do because they mostly ran weak side. So Baxter lined up on the strong side every single play. It didn't matter which side was the strong side, he lined up on that side, and they just ran to the weak side. And so, I hardly got to see him do much. They really schemed around him, so he only finished with 3 tackles, and they threw the ball maybe 7 times, but it was all off of play action. So, I never had a chance to see Baxter pin his ears back and just go after the quarterback, which was, again, unfortunate. And then he played on the offensive side of the ball. He almost never came off the field, but they basically always had a safety over him. So he commanded extra attention and he only had 1 catch for 14 yards. Still, to say all of this, I still really like Devin Baxter as a prospect. I think this game was just an awkward one because of the style of offense he was going against. But I mean, you're talking about a guy that's 6'5", 235 pounds, and he's just such an impressive specimen. He's still a little raw from, just a technical standpoint, some things he can clean up, just getting more comfortable with his body, improving his bend, adding some more strength, things of that nature, playing the run a little better. But overall, I think there's so much to like about Devin Baxter. I still think he has one of the highest ceilings in the class. And then the thing that impresses me the most about Baxter is just that he's a student of the game. His father's actually his defensive line coach at Gwynn Park, and they've the past couple of weeks they've sat down and they've watched the first 2 Michigan games, I guess, on replay, and they broken down what the pass rushers are doing at Michigan and how Baxter can fit in. And they've taken notes and they've reported that to the Michigan staff. And I think it's really cool that Baxter has that type of dialogue. I've actually been told by sources at Michigan that they're extremely impressed with Baxter's IQ and just his understanding of the game and his note taking and the feedback he gives the staff. And I know Baxter is not a very vocal guy on social media, and he's, tucked down in Maryland, but he's a really impressive kid, man. He's just a straight up culture fit. He's exactly what a Michigan kid should be. And like I said, I think he has David Ojabo type of potential. I think On3 has it right. It's the only service that has him ranked in the top 200 nationally. There's just a lot to like about Baxter. So with all the issues that went on this weekend with Nichols and Baxter, I'm hoping to go back out to Maryland in October and have a chance to see both Nichols and Baxter again. But Baxter is fully solid, so nothing to worry about his commitment. Zach and I will be back on the road next week, or I'm sorry, this week. Man, I think it's next week because I just saw a football game yesterday and I have to get on a plane on Thursday. So very, very short week for me, but I will be back tomorrow here on our YouTube channel to answer all of your questions on the Wednesday night show. So make sure to like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss tomorrow's show. You don't have to super chat tomorrow, but it would be appreciated. And as John A. Schultz mentioned, EJ, YouTube better not glitch this week because I have a few questions to ask tomorrow. We will get producer Megan on that, and she personally promises there will be no glitches. So anyway, I will be back tomorrow. Zach will be back next week. Have a good night, guys, and we'll see you later.